Welcome into the Spotlight Omaha podcast on a Tuesday morning where we take you around the city of Omaha, introduce you to local business owners, influential figures, and people who are making an impact on our community today. We are brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. Pixel Fire Marketing is a locally owned marketing firm who specializes in website design, creating social media ads, and engaging your business online. If you can benefit from any of that, check out pixelfiremarketing.com today. Joining me inside the Pyramid Contractor studio today is James Netusil from Sweet Beans Coffee, a new concept coming to Gretna. James, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Jimmy.
Talk to me about the concept, because I think coffee, we've gotten to this point where it's kind of like car washes. There's one in every corner, right? And giving a new concept about it is something that I feel like a lot of people haven't tried. What is the concept, and why are we excited about this?
Sure. So when we sat down to talk about what we were going to do to make us unique, because like you said, there's just tons of coffee shops in Omaha. I know for me, one of the things that's important is to see the fact that the beans are fresh. And, you know, you can go to a grocery store and buy coffee beans, and they're probably cheaper than if you were to buy them in a coffee shop. But they've been sitting there for a couple months and in a warehouse prior to that for a couple months. So you never know how old those beans are. So I said, one of the things we want to do is we want to roast our coffee beans in-house. So we're going to have a room that people can actually see into. It's a glassed off room, and see us roasting our beans. We're roasting our beans daily. And the beans that we're using in the shop are no more than, well, you typically have to wait 5 days after you roast them to use them. So no more than a week old. And that makes a huge difference in the quality of the coffee. The other thing is we're going to have a full bakery in our shop.
Okay.
Yep. So so all of our pastries and things are going to be made in-house by a couple bakers. They're my recipes. I used to be a chef, and so we're bringing those in. And then the other thing is where we're getting our beans from and how we're roasting them. You can go to any coffee shop and you can find, you'll go to Coffee Shop X, and Coffee Shop X does a great job with the sweet drinks and the blended drinks and that kind of stuff. Not so great with maybe the brewed coffee. Or you go to this place and it's all about the espresso and the brewed coffee, and they're super serious about that, but they don't have the other stuff that some people might want. So we're trying to be everything for everybody. Our coffee is going to be super serious coffee. We are sourcing our coffee from some of the best places in the world, and we're getting them through an importer who imports the coffee beans very often. So they're not sitting in their warehouse for a long time. We're roasting them with a great machine. I went up to Chicago for a couple weeks and spent some time with one of the best roasters in the business, who's been doing it.
Culinary city too.
Oh yeah. And so we're roasting our beans on a regular basis, every day, as a matter of fact, and we're going to have some incredible beans. But we're also going to have that fun stuff that people may want, the frappes and the shakes and smoothies and that kind of stuff. And so we're going to be a serious coffee shop, but we're going to also have a fun side to us.
You're obviously not at other places, so you don't have the exact answer to this, but do you have a theory on why some people are really good at certain things and maybe not at others?
Boy, I think people are used to mediocre coffee. I hate to say that, but we're seeing a lot of trends in the coffee industry that are coming back away from the super dark roasts. People used to be all over those big dark roasts where it was chocolate and caramel and nut, and it was like that was all they knew. Now we're seeing a trend back towards those medium and medium light roasts where you can actually taste the flavor of the coffee that you're getting. So if I have a coffee from Guatemala that's grown 5,000 feet above sea level, et cetera, you're going to have these certain flavors. If you're getting a Nicaraguan coffee or an Ethiopian goji berry, you're going to get those different aromas and flavors because we're not roasting them to death. And I think that people are hesitant to try these trends because they're so comfortable with what they've been used to. And unfortunately, when you roast stuff that's really, really, and I like dark roasts, but when you roast stuff that's really, really dark, you lose all of those characteristics, and you just always have kind of the same thing. So
I have to ask, because I could kind of feel it in your voice when you started talking about the different types of roasts and the different kind of beans that you guys are going to be using. You're very passionate about it. Do you have a struggle when you're talking to somebody across the counter about giving layman's terms about what the difference is?
Yeah. Because my background was not in coffee. I was a chef for many years. And before that, I had a couple other careers. I was actually a minister for 8 years.
Okay.
So because I'm not from that kind of like, hey, I've been doing this for 30 years, kind of, I find it easier to talk to people on a common level.
And it's all new and exciting to some degree.
It is. So, my boss keeps looking at me and he's like, oh my God, you're so excited about this. And I said, I'm learning things and developing things and experiencing things I've never experienced. And I said, for me, that's a huge opportunity to bring people to the same place I am, excite them about coffee again. Not just, oh, I'm going to go get my cup of coffee. I'm going to get this coffee that makes me happy in the morning. And it's an experience. Yeah. It's an experience. And I don't know. We have an expression that we've used, and we've used two of them. First is the art of the bean. We really are trying to be artists in what we do. And I've watched a lot of podcasts, YouTube videos with master baristas that talk about how this really is an artistry.
Yeah.
But the other thing we want to be is that we're that opening of the eyes in the morning when people come and they're trudging off to work or whatever it is, and
having a bad day,
and they come in and they experience friendly people, great coffee, and they leave just feeling like, hey, this could be an amazing day.
We're not here to bash anybody or talk negatively about anybody, but is it more of an attempt to take the opposite approach of, hey, you can get this coffee on every other corner throughout a 6-mile radius and make it different and unique and give a standalone, we already used the word, but experience that is different than what other people are experiencing?
We have a lot of those corporate locations here in Omaha and surrounding areas, but we have those kind of singular coffee shops or smaller company coffee shops that I think because they're not roasting on a corporate level, they have the opportunity to be more artisanal and more small batch. And I think that's something that the Omaha market didn't have for a long time. It was all just kind of corporate coffee.
Well, we talked about the benefits and being able to be creative and do unique things. If that's the benefit to being able to roast locally and not on a industrial size roasting scale, what are some of the setbacks?
Yeah, I would say that probably for me, it's hard to say because we have the machine we have is extremely technologically advanced.
Sure.
And so once I roast, so let's say I'm roasting a Colombian Nakanan with it's a certain bean. I'm roasting this bean and I get my roast to the point that I love it and I think this is going to be great. I can set that into the system and I can literally pour the beans in, push a button, and it does it the same way every time.
It's a little bit of smart learning going on.
It is. Yeah. And I think for me, that's unique because a lot of the roasters that are used are manual. They're all like, you have to sit there time and time again, and you have to turn your gas up and turn your airflow up. And you have to, every time you have to just shoot for it. I think that it's really hard to say what the downside of it is because
there's so many positives.
And because you're roasting small batch, again, you're not holding coffee for months at a time. Now I go to some coffee shops and I notice they have 25 different, varieties available in 10-ounce bags and et cetera. And you can go buy them and they're $18 for 10 ounces. And I'm sitting here going, how are those 25 different varietals of coffee fresh?
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, they're not selling all that.
Well, let me ask, is there a plan to do coffee to go? People could take grounds and stuff to go? Okay.
So we are limiting ourselves, at least as we open up, we're limiting ourselves to 3 blends, a light, a medium, and a dark. We're doing our espresso, we're doing a decaf roast, and then we're doing 6 varietals. And varietals are single origin. So a Nicaraguan, an Ethiopian, a Kenyan, Costa Rican, a Colombian. And that's what we're going to limit ourselves to because I want to make sure that the coffee people get is fresh.
Sure.
And I don't want to have 25 different varieties just because I can. I can certainly buy 100 varieties of coffee and roast it, but it's not going to do us any good. We want to be the place you can come and know that the beans you get are consistent, they're fresh. And the thing about us is we're not giving you 10 ounces, we're giving you a full pound.
Wow.
For about the same price everyone else is. I just think that the value that you're getting for our coffee is way above what you can get at other places.
We're catching up with James Netusil of the Sweet Beans Coffee Company.
Yeah.
Okay. Here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractors studio. You guys are not open yet. The plan is for November as of now. Anybody that's ever opened up a brick and mortar or a business of any kind knows that there's always a whole lot of red tape you have to jump through. But you guys are going to be opening up in Gretna. Why Gretna?
You know what? To be honest, we looked all over the place. Sure. And we found this location because it had the ability to have a drive-through.
Oh,
I don't know if people realize it, but I would say probably 60 to 70% of coffee businesses drive-through. And so if we didn't have a drive-through place, we couldn't do it. So we found this place that had drive-through. The landlord's great. It's a great location. It's surrounded by all of these houses and schools and churches, and it's in a great location because you're off Harrison Street, and the traffic on Harrison.
Can you tell people where it is?
Yeah, it's 189th and Harrison. Okay. So if you know, there's a Ref Sports Bar there. There's a Bum Boot Camp. No, Burn Bum Camp. I don't know what it is.
Sure.
Anyway, it's an exercise place. There's a daycare next door.
Look it up.
Yeah, Dogtopia. But you can see us right off of Harrison Street. It's easy to get to us. So we've been already getting a lot of feedback from people. Not feedback, but like friending us on social media. We have social media on X and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram.
And the website is scrolling below.
Website below. You can go sign up for the rewards program already. If you do sign up, you get a special treat for being one of those people that signs up before we open. So they'll be in your inbox. So we've already got
this podcast.
What's that?
I will be doing that at the end of this podcast.
Absolutely. We're super excited. We've just got a lot of buzz going on right now for us. And
what about from the businesses around it? Because Angie at Refs is great, and we know those guys.
Yeah.
What about the businesses around? Have they been pretty supportive of it? Everybody loves coffee, so I'm sure they're trying to buddy up real nice.
Yeah, the folks at Bum, I keep saying, is it Burn Boot Camp? I don't know. Anyway, they've been super kind. They're right next door to us. They're super excited, and we're doing a partnership with them with some protein shakes and protein bars and that kind of stuff for people who go there, for anybody really. And the Ref Sports Bar, we've been chatting with them a lot, and Dogtopia, they welcomed us to the neighborhood, and so it's been great, and I think they're super supportive. Even other coffee companies in Omaha, and I just have to say thank you to those. They've been super supportive and just having conversations with me about the process and that kind of thing. Maya at Astute Coffee, he and I are grade school classmates, and he sat down with me for a while, and we talked about the concept and tasted some coffees, and it's been supportive, and Hardy's been supportive, and so just a lot of places have just been really kind and welcoming us to the industry. So,
what do you think is the biggest hurdle facing a new business in the coffee industry?
You know, I was gonna say, if you would ask me this a month ago, I would have said staffing.
Yeah,
I'm not finding that. I have
really.
Yeah, I actually start interviews today for some folks, but so staffing doesn't seem like it's going to be a problem. Honestly, I think it's how do I want to say this? I'll say it from my own perspective. When I used to go to coffee shops and I'd be like, oh my God, that's a $7 drink. Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. When I started diving into this and costs and all the overhead and stuff, I started to understand.
Were you saying, oh my God, this is only $7?
Right. Yeah. Right. And the profit margin for coffee shops is very thin. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be on your toes. You have to be giving your best all the time. And I think that's the big challenge is, you have to stand out in front of those other companies because you have to prove yourself in a market that you've not been in before. We have growth plans. We can talk about that if you want, but we have growth plans for the next 5 years. And beyond that, not just in Omaha, but moving out, maybe outside of Omaha to Lincoln, Council Bluffs, whatever, Des Moines. And then we're also talking about in the future franchising because we do, but doing so in a way that we don't lose our quality.
You got to walk before you can run, right?
We're going to be roasting every shop. We're not going to have just a place where we roast 10,000 pounds and shoot it out to other places. Every shop's going to have a roastery, and every shop's going to be just as good as our first location.
I want to get to the growth in a minute, and I'll ask about that in a second. But when we talk about hiring, you are very much the face of this business. It's kind of your baby to run.
I don't know if you want my face.
Listen, there's a reason I'm on radio. They pay me to do this podcast, so I have to put my ugly mug on it. We both have hair that nobody wants. That's for sure.
That's right. That's
But,
true. That's true.
when we talk about taking your baby and your idea and your concept, and you can hear how passionate you are about making sure every place that we open is going to have a roaster inside of. Everybody's going to do it this way. Is it difficult for you to say, "Oh, now I got to go bring somebody in that I haven't met before"? They sit down in front of me today and give them the keys to kind of run this thing with me.
Yeah, I think one of the things for me is when we open this first location, I'm going to be there. I live 2 blocks away, which is super nice. I'm going to be there all the time. Well, yeah, that's right. You're true. But I'm going to be there all the time. I'm going to be the one roasting initially. And I'm going to have eventually an apprentice to teach how to roast.
Very cool.
I'm going to be in the kitchen baking with the bakers. They're my recipes. I want to make sure the quality is good and they're consistent. It's going to be a lot of work. And I told my spouse for the next 6 months, they may not see me much. But,
sure. Get used to that, by the way.
But that's a commitment. You just have to, if you're excited about this and you know what you can do with it and you know the possibilities, then you just have to commit yourself 100%, 1,000%, because you're talking
100
about
is not enough most days.
You're talking about a huge investment of money and time, but to start interviewing people, I know the kind of people I want. I want people who have great personalities, who are friendly. I can teach the skills.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, I think probably half of my people that I'm going to be interviewing have never worked as baristas.
Wow.
And I'm okay with that.
Sure.
As a chef,
they don't know what they don't know yet, right?
And as a chef, I used to, when people would come to me and say, well, we have an interview for you, but they don't have experience, I'm like, perfect.
Thank you.
You don't have to unteach the bad stuff.
Yep.
I'm still learning, so there's a lot of opportunity for me to learn with them, beside them. And we have a philosophy that we're going into with this. It's our understanding that no one in our coffee shops is above or below anyone else.
That's awesome.
We're all equal. I can clean the toilets. You can clean the toilets. I can pull a shot of espresso. You can pull a shot. I can sweep the floor. You can, we're all going in this together. And
that's leadership, folks.
It is, I think it's because I've been on the other side of it, where I've had, in my chefing experience, I've had chefs above me who sit in the office and play on their phone all day. And I'm like, what are you really doing to benefit us, to help us grow? So I just think it's important that, you get your hands dirty.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have to ask, when you go from being a minister to a chef, I'm assuming there's probably a couple other things in there along the way. Why was coffee your calling?
Okay. So I'll just be honest. I work for a gentleman who owns other companies. And actually, I was going into that company of his to be an accountant.
Oh, okay.
I have a little bit of a background in accounting and bookkeeping. And after he found out about my experience with food and as a chef, he just said, I've always wanted to do this. I've wanted to have a coffee shop and build it out. And he said, would you be interested? And I said, you know what? My husband and I have been wanting to do this on our own.
Moving these decimals don't seem this exciting anymore.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'd really rather do it with your money. No, that's not how I said it, but
But that was just,
that's the thought. Yeah, I'd rather do it and
especially if it's, hey, I have a passion about this and I hope it makes money. You look like the right person to do this. Let's have this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I've always loved good coffee. I would never. Nothing against them, but can't drink Folgers. I was at a funeral a couple months ago.
I don't think I've ever actually drinking Folgers coffee. Now that you say that,
yeah,
I'm not a huge coffee person.
Weird. When you drink good coffee and you go back to that, you're like, this is just bizarre. Can
I ask though, because and this is not the tangent we were going to get off on, but this is how my weird brain works. So, but now that you've been in it and you've seen the process and you see the level that Folgers has to distribute out and the amount of money they have to push out, does it make sense why, when you're getting it from 4 feet away versus from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, it does taste different? And there's a difference in the product?
Well, if I'm being just completely honest, the problem is with those mass roasters. A, they're trying to save on money,
Yeah.
and B, they're just roasting without a whole lot of control. Like to be honest, so they're using lower quality beans, and there's two different beans. There's a lot of different beans
Because they're
but-
more worried about quantity than
Well,
quality.
yeah, there's Arabica, which is what everyone wants. It's like it's a great bean. It's the genus of bean. Then there's Robusta, and Robusta is kind of like the garbage bean.
Sure.
It's harsh. It's kind of
It's a bean.
it's a bean. It's super heavy, but they're mixing in that harsh bean with other coffee because it's super cheap. And so when you taste things like Folgers and
See,
canned
this is what I
coffee
was
and
looking
stuff,
for. This is why I asked this question.
yeah, when you taste those canned coffees, you're like, it's harsh, because that's the beans they're using. But you taste something like I don't want to plug anything, but you taste something like a Starbucks coffee.
People have heard of it. It's fine.
Yeah, well, yeah, that Robusta is they say they don't use Robusta. I think they do a little bit, but their beans are mostly Arabica, and so you get a smoother coffee that's not as harsh, not as chemically, not as
And a lot of it's roasted here too.
But
they have more local roasters than a place like Folgers may have.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where Starbucks roasts their coffee from.
So I looked this up when you were coming in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
so they do it out of Seattle, Colorado, and somewhere in Ohio. And I
Oh,
can't remember
okay,
the name of the
okay.
city, but
Awesome.
we're catching up with James Netusil of the new business opening up here in Gretna called Sweet Beans Coffee Company. Brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractor Studio. We talked about growth a minute ago, and you talked about the idea of franchising out eventually. And obviously, you guys haven't opened up door number one yet, so
Right.
we've got to get there first.
Yeah.
But this seems to be a concept that keeps coming up in this studio with new or businesses that have been around. The idea is eventually to let somebody else take the dream and put their stamp on it. Why is that a big deal for you guys?
That's a good question. I think for me, how would I say this? Franchising for me has a different understanding than maybe other places. Franchising typically is you pay us a fee, you can use our name, and we'll sell you the cups and stuff that have our logo on it, and we have some things that you have to do. But for us, franchising isn't so much about, well, it is about controlling the product, but it's not so much about just building more buildings. It's about building more opportunity for people.
Sure.
And I think, to be honest, I haven't done a lot of research and work into how franchising works. I've never franchised anything. I've never been involved with franchising. But I know for myself, I can only be certain places, a certain number of times, certain places. And I know that once we get to a certain number of our own shops, I won't be able to go beyond that, at least in my position. And so we want to grow the name, but I think we also want to give people the opportunity to do something that we know is going to work out very well, that's going to be a great company for our area, and then to spread that. We don't want to be the next Starbucks, or we don't want. We've been talking about that and said we're going to be an empire. No, we're not going to be an empire. We're going to be we're going to be still a locally owned coffee company, but with tentacles in various, still kind of local areas. So
You mentioned it. You're married.
Yeah.
You're starting this new business. You're moving from being an accountant to being a master roaster and
Yeah.
learning everything about coffee you can along the way. Told your husband, hey, we're not going to be talking for 6 months a whole lot here.
Yeah.
So get used to it. How do you balance it? How do you be a good husband? How do you be a good business owner? How do you be a good business partner? How do you have time for your employees and open a new business all at the same time?
I think part of it is you have to trust your employees. I could be at the coffee shop. So our opening hours are 6 a.m. and on Saturday and Sunday, 7 a.m. I could be at the coffee shop at 5 a.m. every morning. Mm-hmm. I could put a cot in the back room, to be quite honest, because
There's going to be days you're going to want to.
I could always, probably. I could always be busy.
Yeah.
But once you start trusting your employees and you can delegate those things, like we're going to have shift supervisors. They're going to be opening the coffee shop. They're going to be pulling the money out of the safe. They're going to be doing things that I don't need to be doing once I can trust them and once I get to know them. And then maybe there's days I just pop in for 10, 15 minutes. How's it going? Great. Okay. If you need anything, let me know. I'm out. you have to balance that work life. And if you don't, it really, your relationships can suffer. I've given, like I said, I've given warning to my husband that for the first 6 months, it might be, tough, but,
Yeah. Is he helping at all?
He said he would work on the weekends.
Do you mind mentioning his name?
Alex.
Shout out to Alex. Thank you for all you do.
Yep.
It's always a team effort. We're talking about opening up a new business.
That's right. He's been very patient.
You know what? This is episode number 187, and I've asked that to every business owner that's come in here, and not one person has given the trust the employee answer. But I think that's a really, really big part of it. And when you're an entrepreneur and you're opening up a new business or you're opening up a second location or whatever, I think you have to have sort of a type A personality. And I think it's so hard to let go of the reins or take your hand off the wheel and hand it off to somebody else and have that full trust. But I think it's also a necessity, especially when we're talking about growth and what the next step looks like to be able to achieve that.
Yeah. I think when I was a chef, one of the things that surprised other chefs was I was not. Chefs have a tendency to have a high ego. And
You have to in that industry, right?
Yeah, well, you don't have to.
Okay.
But they tend to have a high ego, and if someone says, "Well, I didn't really like this dish," they get personally offended. I was never that way. If you didn't like something, I want to know because I want to make it better. I would say 20 years ago that way.
You ever seen the movie Chef with John Favreau?
Oh, yeah.
I just assume every chef is like that. Sorry, go ahead.
I've watched every food movie ever. But you can.
We'll get your thoughts on Ratatouille next time.
I like that too.
Next time you come in.
Yeah, for sure. But I learned that, and I learned that I didn't like that because I didn't like how I was treated. And so when I treat others, I treat them with respect and I treat them with kindness. And you go much farther with that than you do with just demanding. And so when you treat your employees with kindness, you trust them, you give them the opportunity to grow. I think that they appreciate it and they give you the best they can.
Let's talk about growth for you. What does growth for you within Sweet Beans Coffee look like 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, I mean,
the ultimate goal maybe just to teach and work less.
That would be great.
Sure.
That would be great. Eventually, all of our accounting and stuff for this first location is going to be done in-house. But eventually, when we grow enough, we will have our accounting done by, all the stores will be done by the same person. And,
I got a really good bookkeeper if you need one.
Do you? Okay, cool.
Shout out to Debbie at Outsource One Bookkeeping.
Debbie, we'll be in touch. But to be able to kind of delegate those things to someone who has the knowledge of them and the ability to do them will give me the opportunity to teach more. And we are gonna have in our shop, at the first shop too, we're gonna have roasting classes. You want to come in and learn how to roast coffee? We're gonna teach you how to roast coffee. You want to have a class on how to taste coffee? We're gonna have those. So I want to pass on knowledge because it has been so incredible for me in the last several months to learn all of these things about coffee that it's excited me, and I know it can be the same way for others.
Well, we're right at that point where we kind of shut it down for the day. Is there anything about Sweet Beans Coffee Company that we haven't mentioned that people should know?
You know what? Come to our website, sweetbeanscc.com. If you're looking for a job, you can put a job application in. You can do your rewards program. Our grand opening is going to be huge. We're part of a group called the Omaha Business Owners Association. They're going to be doing our grand opening for us, our ribbon cutting and stuff. Yeah. So we're part of a great network there, and we are going to have retail beans. If you have a company that you want to have beans delivered or sent to you for your use in your office or whatever, give us a call. Let us know. Go on our website. There's a contact form. We're happy to do that for you too. So we just want to be a great part of this community and give back to the community what it's given to us. So
James, this is fun, man. I really appreciate
Thanks,
you doing
Jimmy.
this. I'm
Yeah.
excited to see what happens with
thanks.
Sweet Beans, and I will be there for the ribbon cutting. I'm very
Awesome.
excited about this. We'll be back tomorrow at 11, catching up with not necessarily quite a new business. It's going to be an interesting take on things that are happening in the Omaha area, though. We hope you can join us tomorrow at 11 o'clock here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractor Studio. We'll see you tomorrow at 11.